Introduce your talk and off you go.
All right, and I'm going to try sharing my full screen. I hope this isn't, I hope you can see it clearly enough, but I have so much to show you guys. I didn't want to just show a presentation and then try to flip back and forth between screens because I need to show you guys quite a bit. So I'm going to share my entire screen and let's see if you guys see it. Well, we don't want you seeing yourselves, so let's move you off of that screen. All right, so are you guys seeing my screen that has the Fabrik logo on it?
Yep, seeing it.
Perfect. All right, good deal. All right, so what we're going to talk about in here is how to build a business directory in Joomla using Fabrik. And by the way, whenever I gave this topic over, I didn't realize I was only going to have 30 minutes. So wow, I'm going to talk really fast for you guys because I was like, wow, that's a lot to get in there. I've set up a lot of it so that we will be able to kind of look at the way it's put together. I'll just give you a little bit of background about me. I know I said a little bit before, but basically I have a personal website, which is like my redheaded stepchild. I never update it, but it's there. My business is Media A-Team. It's an agency. We do all types of media. So we do websites, we do video production, we do a little bit of all kinds of stuff, graphic design. I mean, we've got billboards, magazine ads, because we have a full team of people who do it. But we've always built websites since the beginning, 19 years ago. When we very first started, it was Flash video websites and then, and action scripting, and those were fun. I hate to see Flash die, but it did. So we went to content management and reviewing all the content managements that we looked at the time. We went with Mambo, and then a year and a half or so later, Joomla forked off. And so then we moved with that. About 6 or 7 years ago, I guess, we had built several applications for clients where we had to do custom extensions. And then I would have the problem where the developer that helped us with it disappeared. I couldn't find them anymore. I mean, we've all been down this path, right? I mean, you need to update custom extensions and you can't find the people who worked on it originally and things like that. So we started looking for ways to do it ourselves. And so I used Chronoforms and Chrono Connectivity quite a bit. Loved it. Absolutely loved it. But I wanted a little more control over everything. And that was when someone said, oh, you should try Fabrik. Now, I remembered using Fabrik back in Mambo days. I was like, it's just a form extension. That's not going to help me. And they're like, oh, no, it's an application builder. I was like, oh. So I took a look at it and we started building applications for our clients, mission critical applications, actually. And so then when Rob contacted me and asked me if I wanted to buy it, I really didn't have a choice. I was like, yes, because I built all these things for my clients. They'll kill me if I don't keep it going. And so Hugh Messenger, some of you guys may know him. He's our main dev. He's been working on Fabrik for 12 years now, I guess, and he's still working on it. And we built some huge things, especially in the last few years. We've moved into a couple of really enterprise level applications with it. So it's great because it does keep the code base all up to date because we're having to do it for client work. But we're not as active in our own community as we used to be. But it's still there, and we do have a Slack channel with some of our top devs that contribute and things like that. And then I, about almost 2 years ago now, bought OS Training. And so we've been also working over there, and we're actually working on a Fabrik course for OS Training as well. Just haven't got it out yet. But we have a lot of other courses, some cool stuff y'all should check out. I'm one of the organizers of Joomla Day Texas here in Texas, and I'm also part of the Houston Joomla user group. And now I'm working with Laura and the rest of the gang, the Joomla gang bunch, the Joomla bunch. You can see our video out there for Joomla Day USA, and we're real excited about it. And we do have a lot of people participating, so I hope you guys do check it out. So what are we going to talk about in here very quickly? We're going to talk about what is Fabrik, and I kind of talked about it a little bit, but I just want to kind of go into a little more detail with you. What we're going to need to start and build our directory that we are going to build in here, and then setting things up, prepping our data. If we have been given data by a client, what do we need to do to massage that data to get it in there? And then we're going to talk about how we're going to display our data, how we're going to filter our data for them, if we want to map something for a visualization, things like that. And then hopefully we'll have time to also associate these entries to users and show you guys how to let users manage their own listings in here. And then, of course, questions. So what is Fabrik? So Fabrik, in its base level, it is going to give you the ability to create a table in the database, create columns on that table. It's going to give you a list of that. It's going to give you a form of that. It's going to give you a details view of each record. That is basically just the core of Fabrik and what it does. So it allows me to essentially talk to the database, which was one of the things that we really needed, and allows us to create those relationships between databases too, as well as we can have multiple databases that we connect to with Fabrik. You're going to, by default, when you install Fabrik, have it connected to your Joomla database, but you can actually connect it to others. As a matter of fact, I do a talk where I show you can connect over to a WordPress and pull, product reports from WooCommerce over into a dashboard inside of Joomla if you want to, things like that. So you can connect to other things, which is really handy sometimes, especially if someone has already something else they built that's storing data into a MySQL database, and you just connect over there. And then, of course, the thing that I think makes it so powerful is that even down to the individual element, we give you fine-grained access controls from Joomla's access control. So it is core access control, but down to fine-grained level, even down to the element, which would be a column. And then also, it is WYSIWYG. And I hate to say it like, oh, you don't need to know any code whatsoever to use Fabrik. But I will tell you, when I started using Fabrik, I really didn't know any code whatsoever. And I started building some pretty cool stuff. I did eventually hit walls. I built a portal for a private school, and I did it all WYSIWYG. But then there were little things, and I was like, I don't know how to make it do this. I wanted to do something special. I didn't. My client did. And I was like, I'm not quite sure how to make it do this. And so that was when I started working with Rob and Hugh, actually, and saying, I think I need a dev on a couple of these things, because there's a lot of places that you can actually inject PHP throughout Fabrik. And so you can customize it. And so you don't have to know code to use Fabrik, but as you get better at Fabrik, you're going to want to know some code. And it may be that you actually, I find a lot of the answers online myself. I can cobble code. That's what I call myself. I can cobble code. I don't write it from scratch, but a lot of times I can find it and I can tweak it till I get what I want. Or you can have a dev. And a lot of you guys, listening to what all you do, a lot of you guys would be able to handle all of your own code in there. All right. So what do we need up front? Pretty easy. You need Joomla and you need Fabrik. I will put a caveat in this, because in my example, I'm going to show you, we're going to also use Google Maps for geocoding. So the other thing you would, if you wanted to replicate what I'm doing in here today, is you would need to have a Joomla map key. A Google map key. And they're still free, meaning as long as you don't hit, you've got really big numbers now. They're still free to use Google Maps for geocoding, but you do have to put a credit card in to get that free key code now. They want a credit card as just in case, I guess, you go crazy and have 10,000 hits on your map in one day. But I've had several clients on the free key. I've actually, and I have one that has like a service lookup for a fiber optic company on it. And even they, as many hits as they get, have yet to be charged in a year. So anyway, so that is the one extra little thing that I didn't put on this slide that you might need. And if you're not using the mapping, you won't need it at all. So planning. And by the way, planning is always the key part to any application build. I don't care what you build it in. Planning is the most important thing. And it depends on the application as to how detailed we get. We may literally do kind of like what you saw on the napkin, sketch it out and go, yep, that's good enough. I'm going to build this now. Or we may need to actually get very, very detailed. And so like you can see, what you see on the right there, we've scrubbed it of client information, but that database diagram was 26 pages for that client. It was big. There were a ton of tables in that application. Still, by the way, that one was one of the first applications I built in Fabrik, and it's still ticking away, and they still run their business off of this application. It's crazy. So you might want to get very detailed, like that one is, showing where your joins are, showing actually individual element names if you want to. But you may just do, the old draw it on a napkin and get going, because a lot of people do. But if it's going to be too big, even if you get started and it's growing, I recommend you at least start making yourself some notes in there, kind of like that, where at least the different tables, because we've had some applications that started out and there were a few tables, and then by the time we were done, there's 25 tables talking to each other in there. And so you kind of really need to spec this out, even for yourself, because you'll get busy and you've done 10 other projects, and then something happens, you need to go back and look at this one. Do you really think? I always think I'll remember this because it was such a pain, but you get back in and it's like, I don't remember this at all. What's connected to what? So map it out. That's important. So what are we going to do today? I was trying to figure out what are we going to do for our example. So I was like, well, I have booksisters.com. It's an old domain. So I was like, okay, let's build ourselves a little directory of books. Books, we're going to want to sort those books, right? How are we going to sort them? We're going to sort them by categories. Now, the different colors that I'm showing you in this, and by the way, this is a very high level, obviously, look at what we're going to do, but our books are going to have so the book, the blue column that you see over there is going to be one table. Category is going to be joined to the categories table because we want to have our categories on a separate table. We're just going to store the ID in our books table. We're going to store our category names over here because what if we misspell something? Nobody wants to go back through and fix that. So we're going to make sure, what if we want to add a category? It's very easy to go let your client manage the categories table themselves. We're also going to have an author on each book. And by the way, this could get even more and more complicated, right? I've got it where we have one author per book. I know if as soon as I would have a client present this to me, the first thing I would ask is, do you have any books that have multiple authors, right? So we're going to have one author on our books in this one, but just those are the kind of things. That's why planning is so important, because when I laid this out, that would have been one of the first questions I had for that client. Can it belong to multiple categories? Can it have multiple authors, right? In our sample today, we have one of those, but the authors are also going to be tied to an author table because we want more information about that author than just their name, right? We want their address, a bio about them. And then we're also going to give them a user ID so they can go in and manage their own author profile as well as any book that they are the author of. So we can give them the ability to do this. And the author ID off of that table would go over and connect to our Joomla user table. The publisher, same thing. We want information about these publishing companies that we have. And so we will have another table for publishers where we'll have their name, their address, a link to their site. And, I don't think I put submission instructions, but we can put that in there if we want to put submission instructions on there. On our books table, we'll also give some cover artwork for them. We'll see if it's available in an audiobook or not. We'll put an ISBN. I don't know why I have ISBN twice. There should also be book blurb there. So book blurb. So this is kind of what we're going to build in there. And like I said, when I looked at this, I was like, there is no way I can build this for them in 30 minutes. Now, mind you, I could do this really quickly, but I would probably need a little bit longer than that, especially if we talked till 30 minutes in here. So let's go take a look at it. I've pre-built some pieces of it, but we're going to still look at tweaking some things in here. So remember, you need the idea, you need to map it out, then you start implementing and testing. And as we know, that just keeps rolling and rolling until we're ready to hand it over to the client, right? So let's take a look. First thing, we're going to pretend like our client sent us some data. And this is just some mock data that I've got in here, which is like their authors' names, the book titles. And this is the way you might get this information from a client, right? It's all together in one. But remember, we're going to split this up into multiple tables. So there is some data that we would need to massage. So let's first go now, if we've been given this, let's look at how we put this together in Fabrik, and then we'll figure out how we need to split this data. So, by the way, in case anybody's curious, I use Macaroo for all my sample data. It's fabulous. If you're looking for sample data to test out applications or to put in tables in Fabrik, whatever you're looking for, Macaroo is great because you can get very, very specific in the type of data, and then you just download your CSV. You can get up to 1,000 records per dump. So it's great. So I just thought I'd leave that up there and show you guys. All right, so this is going to be our little site, booksisters.com. And this is literally just a base install, as you can see, with Protostar of Joomla. And I actually had an old sample in here of a car club where we just literally dumped in, but this is a one table example. We dumped in all the information from a client, which was their member names, the type of cars that they had, if they were a pro member or not. It lets us sort them by the type of car. So if I want to see everybody who has an Aston Martin, I can sort by that. So we're going to look at how we're going to put filters on our books. The other thing is you can take this same data and you can create a mapping of it. And you can see it's already still pre-sorted to what I had on the other one, or I can clear those out and I can see all of this data mapped on the map. And the difference on those is I'm mapping pro members and paid members and not paid members, basically, are the different colors on that. So you can see this is a list view. This is a details view of a member. And then this is a visualization of the members on a map. So that kind of shows you the different views you get, as well as, let's see, I can't do this without logging in. When I log in, I would be able to actually add it. I have a form as well. on that. But so that was just an example for us to see, and you kind of see what we're trying to go towards, right? So the first thing that we needed to do is in the back end of our Joomla site, obviously install Fabrik. And then once you've installed Fabrik, you're going to start building lists. Now, I've pre-built these lists, like I told you, because I wanted to make sure that we had time in here. This first one, that's that other example I showed you, the one called members. And you'll notice I like to use, we just make up our own little prefixes, but we like to put a prefix on our Fabrik data tables so that they're not the same prefix as Joomla. So that one, I like to use an A one, so it pushes it to the top when I'm looking for table names. But two, you can see here, I've got, this is our new one, the book one, and I used a different number on it, so AFAB2 underbar. So I know that all of those tables are associated with my book directory. Okay. The first thing that I did is I built a book categories list. Now, when I did this, what it did was it actually created this table. I'm going to make a table here. We're going to make one for, we're going to do one for artists or something. We'll do another little table so I can show you how to actually create a table, but it's pretty simple. If we go in here, we say new on a list. We're going to name it, and so we'll call this cover artist. We give it a name, and then we also want to give it a table name. Or, by the way, just a side note for you, you can always select a table inside of the database. All of them are available to you. So like some people like to use use Fabrik to like display back content, to do some different things with. You can also make your users, things like that. So, but we're going to do this one with AFAB2 underbar. So again, I'm just doing this so it names it. You can see how these database name tables, the tables are showing up top because they are my AFAB prefixes. I will save. It will ask me if I have a content type. So in other words, we actually have some XMLs. We've got a couple in there as examples, but you can create an XML of any table that you've created in Fabrik, put that XML in another site, and then it'll recreate that list for you over here. We're just going to use our default. So what I did is I actually just made another table in our Joomla database called AFAB2 underbar cover underbar artist. It also gave me a form. So if I wanted to actually input into that, I already have a form built for me. There's groups, and we probably won't have time to get into groups in here, but what groups allow you to do is group elements together and inside of one form, either to use layout, like I want to do multi-column, or it may be to do repeating groups. So they have a purpose. For right now, we're just going to look at them as they're kind of a holder for our elements. And then it creates elements. That one I just created here, cover artist, Fabrik creates two elements for you when you create it. It creates a date time and it creates an ID. Most times you're always going to need an ID on your tables. Sometimes you don't, but most times you do. You need a primary key most of the time. So it creates that for you. And now what we could do is we could actually start creating another element on here. So in other words, a column on our table, right? And we'll call this artist, or we'll just say name. And you can see we have, these are the core field types that come with Fabrik. There are a lot more that you can download from our site. We have a yes, no button. We have a calculation that's really cool. We've got a notes element. So we have a lot of different elements that are really cool and make your life easier for some things. But we're just going to use a regular field here. And then we're going to put this on our cover artist. I'm going to just save and close this. Now, what did we do there? We actually now have a form that I could input cover artist names inside of and store them in a database. Or if I had them in a CSV, I could import them. Okay. Now I'm going to show you the list and the form on this one. I'm going to first of all turn on this element to show in list. And this will make more sense when I go back and look at the list and my cover artist and I view data. What I did was I turned on that column to show in our list view. And if I go to add, this is the form we just created, which is a name. Okay. If I save that, now we have one record in that table. All right. So that's the 101 of Fabrik and how it works. Create a list that generates a form, a element group, and your elements. And then you can start creating elements. You already now have you have a list view, you have a form view, as well as you have a details view of this, which, you know, is one little thing. So, and I see there is there date time mandatory? I see that on there. It is not mandatory, no. Some people remove those from it. And I will say our new JDate is what we use. By the way, if you've installed Fabrik now, we use JDate, so it works with the Joomla date element, but we still do support the old date element that used to be inside of Joomla because it had some functionality that JDate doesn't have that people were using, such as they can set on their element to restrict dates that can be selected. Then JDate doesn't support all of that yet. We're working on fixing and making a new element that will do that to JDate. But it is not mandatory for whoever asked that. You could actually delete time date if you wanted to. All right. Okay. So now let's take a look at what we said we were going to build, which was, let me just go backwards here on this slide, maybe. Come on. There we go. Okay. So this is what we were building. We have a categories table, an author table, a publisher table, and a book table. And I say them in that order because I did my books table last. Whoops. Sorry, now my watch is talking to me. I did my books table last because I wanted to database join these elements to these. So that's why I did it last. So let's go back here and let's first look at the book categories. That one's dead simple, right? So on this one, if I go look at elements and I look at book categories, I literally have basically what we just created there, right? I have a category name element. That's all I have on this. If I go and look at the list, I have actually put some categories in there for us. And so I've got drama, mystery, comedy, romance, whatever. So I've done some categories here. But now let's pretend like we're going to set this up because we don't want to do this. Every time our client wants a category, they're like, hey, Robbie, can you put this category in? They'll be waiting till like next month. So what we want to do is we want to give our client the ability to do this themselves. So if I go back and I go to the front end of the website, what I want to do is I'm going to create a place for them to manage it. So I've logged into the front end and you'll see I have a new menu. Now I've set this menu up. So we should go back and look at that menu. I set up a menu. I created a new menu called Book Management. On Book Management, I have added some menus. So for the one we just looked at, categories, I have made this a category, a list link. So you can see the menu type. If you go in here under Fabrik, I did a list type. And then I selected the list book categories. Now, the reason I did that is so that from the front end, and you can set the level of this. Right now, just a registered user could do this. So once they log in, they could go to manage categories from the front end here. By the way, I'm a super user, so I can do a lot more like CSV work or empty the table. I actually usually take that away from them. I don't want them to empty out the data tables. But they can just come in here and they can add a new one that is rom-com. And so they've saved now a new category. Okay. Now, I've done the same thing here with authors, so they can manage authors and they can manage publishers. And if we look at this on the back end, let's just go look at the elements that are on those, because those are these are kind of our simple tables is what I call them, the authors table and the publishers table. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. I want to go look at the elements for you here. If we look at the elements on our authors table here, again, I have a date and a time. I'm just not showing them in the list. and I have an ID, but I've turned those off. What I'm showing in my list are the first and last name and the state. Now, with them, I have a first and I have a last name. I have an address line, a city line, a state line, a zip code. They also have a bio if they want to type a little bio. And then I also have a Google Map element. And I'm just going to open this up and just show you what this does. Is what this one does is it says, hey, connect over to Google Maps and geocode. You're going to use the elements. So use the elements. And we say for address, go look in this element. For the city, look in this element. State, go look in this element. Zip, go look in this one. If I wanted to have a country, I could go look in this one. You can either trigger the geocoding with as you type or with a button. And then you can always say if you want to do it on load or only on the new one. I'm going to do it on always for right now. I'm going to close this. Now, what did I do there? Let's go look at this on the front end now, because we're going to pretend like this is our client, and our client wants to add a new author. So they're going to go in and they're going to say, hey, this is Robbie Adair, and her address is this. Oh my gosh, I can't even type. Now, let me scroll up a little bit. Y'all are missing it. As I was typing here, the maps was zoning in on my city, state, and everything as I was typing, my address. And I could make this map be zoomed in more than that, but you could see that it pinpointed and found, that's my business address, by the way. Y'all don't try to come to my house, it's not there. So you can see that it pinpointed that. If I were to change this address and say, let's remove all of this, and let's just say I say New York, you could see that as I did that, you see how it went ahead and auto geocoded to New York. And if I dug down and I got to the cities on here, then it would dig down and it would actually geocode to that. So we'll go back to mine that I had there. Not in New York. And then we could also put in a bio for this author if we wanted to. We'll just put in some junk text and we'll save. And now we have a new author that we just saved in here. And so that author is going to be at the end because I have them sorted the other way. So there's our new author that we put in. So this would allow the client to manage adding authors in. Okay, and then the same exact thing with publishers. We did the exact kind of thing. If I go to add a publisher in here, it's a little bit different. I can add their name, their address. This is going to geocode with it. And then we also gave them a website field so they could put a link to their website. And we actually do have a different element for websites that we can use too that gives you a label and a link if you want. So we have some different elements for that, but I just used a basic element for it. So now, if we go back, and now the bigger thing that we want to look at, so I've built this authors table, right? I've done the publishers one that we just looked at right there on the front end. This is the publishers one, again with a Google map. Now let's take a look at what we've been trying. We built all these other tables to support our books table, right? So on the books table, again, date, time, ID, we have our title. We have if this is available in an audiobook or not. I am using a radio button here. So you can see I have a label of yes or no. And I made my values true and false. Now, the reason I did that is because the data that was supplied to me, I could have changed it, right? I could have used a yes, no with ones and zeros. I could have done whatever I wanted. But the data that was supplied to me was Boolean. So I decided, well, I'll just make it work with the data that was supplied to me. So I used a true, false, yes, no on the front end is what it'll label out. And then if we close that, yeah, see you later, Laura. If we close that and we look, we also have the cover is a file upload, and I've actually just used the same image over and over because I don't want to, try and get 1,000 images. So I just use the same image over and over, but it is an upload, and we'll see that when we go to look at the form. Now, here's where we get cool, in my opinion. So if I look at the category ID, so this is my category for the book, right? I'm using a plugin called Database Join. With the Database Join element, I can come to the data tab here and I can pick a table. So I've picked my categories table that I created. I'm putting a value on my side. So on the books table, I'm going to store the ID, which is the recommended thing to do. There are occasions when we need to store something else, but almost 99% of the time, you really want your ID there. But there are some exceptions to that. And you have the ability to pick anything you want to store as your value over here. And then there's also a label. So in other words, what do I, in this, I'm just showing this as a drop down. In this drop down, what do I want to see? I don't want to see IDs. I don't know the IDs of these categories. I want to see the category name, right? So that's what we have for that database join. The database join to publishers is basically the same. I'm storing the ID. I'm showing the publisher name. The one that is a little different is my author, because if I go to the author here, you see it's a database join. I'm storing the data, the ID, but I did do something a little different with the label. You can see here, you can actually get really fancy with your labels. And I say fancy, mine's not fancy. Mine is just a concatenated label. I'm literally just showing the last name, and then I'm commaing and putting the first name. So I'm building that with two labels, as it were. I'm using two elements to make my label. And we've done some really cool stuff in this concat, like even where we can like go grab other stuff off other tables. And anyway, you can get pretty complex in this concat label if you want to. But this, I wanted to show you how you can use more than one label, because just doing the last name might not explain to you who that author is, right? There may be 5 Smiths. So showing first name, last name is going to give us a better ability to check our author. And we might even find later on, there needs to be one more element that we add to that to really distinguish, because we could have 2 John Smiths. And so how do we know which one? So we might need one more differentiating element to show up there. So that's what we have here on this. Let's take a look at that on the front end now. So if I go to Book Manager and I want to add a book, when I come in here, I can put, this is my test book. It is available in audio. I can pick and I can upload a cover here. I'm going to use a different cover for, I'll probably mess things up if I do that. I'll just use my basic one that I was using for everything. I can put a blurb in here for my book. I can pick a category. And I can put, you know, visit Amazon, because maybe I have the book on Amazon, and I could put my full link to that. I'm not going to go grab a link, but I can put my price in here. This one's going to be $9.99. And I'll pick a publisher. And this is where you can see, here's my authors, right? With the last name, comma, first name. Oh, I got to be first. And then, of course, an ISBN number, which I don't have an ISBN number, but we'll just go make up we'll go grab one of these. There we go. We'll put a true ISBN number in there. Well, a mock ISBN number in there. So I'm going to save that. So I've just added another book to, oh, hang on one second. I need to pick a different, okay, I'll put this one. It's going to be a different size, so it's going to throw everything off. I didn't size that one to be the right size. Okay. All right. So now I've added a new book. Again, it's going to be at the end because I'm sorting these by ID number right now. So this is the last one. So there's our new book that we just put in there, right? If I view the record, you can see I've got a title. I've got, it is available on audiobook. This cover is a little wanky because it had space on either side, but you can see that it brought in the image of the cover. I've got a blurb about it, which category it's in, a link to go visit Amazon, and I have that opening up underbar blank. You could set that in the element, so it's opening up in a new window. I've got the publisher and I've got the author. Now notice on these, they're also hyperlinks. On those elements, you can specify for this to, cannot say that. What can I not say?
You used a term which I'm sure is fine in America, but not in England.
Oh, what did I say? You better tell me.
Carry on. I could see some of the English laughing at that one.
Oh, now you guys. Oh, okay. Okay. Well, you guys will have to let me know. Somebody will have to let me know that, so I don't say it again.
No,
okay. So on our publisher, though, I wanted it to link over to the actual publisher details, right? So this is linking over to the details on that publisher. So what I did was inside of this publisher one, you can see that you can actually go to right here and link this to the joined record. So I'm linking my publisher name to the publisher details. I'm linking the author name to the author details. Okay. The other thing is, oh, great. You set me up for that one, Michael. I love it. Okay. So yes, let's pretend like since I'm in publisher, I get there and I'm about to fill this out and there's no publisher. Then I can say, I want to add this in the front end. You can say to add an option in the front end. So and now remember, I'm on my books form here. editing the publisher ID element. So I just did that. Let's go back to managing books and let's add a new book. And now you can see under publisher, if I don't have the publisher I want, now I have a quick add. And so I can just add it, fill out my publisher and save this. So, and you can do the exact same thing for author as well. That was a great, you just led me right into the next thing I was going to show you. That was perfect. I'll owe you $1 after this. So anyway, so yes, you can do that. And I would do that on both my publisher and my author. I would add where they could add them because that they're going to ask for that immediately, just like Michael asked. They're going to say, wait, oh, I have to go put the publisher in first. I have to put the author in first. Then I have to go to books. No, we can make it so that they can literally now just go to books. I can make it so that they can add a category, add a publisher, and add an author right from this form, just by going in like I just showed you there and saying add option into the front end. So, and I would do that for their ease of use. You want to have a good UI UX. So that would give them a very good experience to be able to come to one form and they're actually filling out 3 others at the same time. All right. So this is kind of our management back end here. But let's say they're like, hey, Robbie, I need to come in here and I need to filter to find things faster, right? So let's turn on a couple of these to filter. Let me go back to the start here. And we were just talking still about managing this data. I haven't even talked about up here. We're going to go in just a second and look at those. But I know somebody's got to give me a time here. How much time do we have?
I believe you've got until 7 o'clock. I personally...
Phil is coming after, so as long as we can rein him in, which isn't easier said than done, then you can go on for a little bit longer.
Okay, all right. Well, okay, because I just want to show you guys a few more things. Obviously, we want to look at filtering. You do it just like I showed you on those club members. We also want to be able to, on our books, we want to be able to filter. So let's go to the books here and let's do a title filter, let's just say. That's not the best one to do, but we will do a title filter too. Inside of each element, by the way, when we go into the elements, all I've shown you so far is kind of this details and the tabs that are underneath that. If you look over on the left, there's a lot more to this. There's publishing information. There's the access. I told you everything has a granular access control where I can pick my access level from Joomla as to even who can add this field, who can edit this field. Is it going to be controlled by a user ID? We're not doing that yet, but we can. Details view. So who can do what? Okay. But the other thing that we can do is in our list view, one, I could allow them to order by title. This is very much like an Excel thing, right? Let me refresh this page. You'll see what I mean. So see my title now, I can order. So now I can alphabetize by title, which is always just a nice little thing to do. I usually put that on most, if it makes sense, on the headings. I will put an order by on that one. So the other thing that we'll want to do in here is we'll want to go to filters. And on the filters, I have to pick a type. So do I want to do a drop down? Well, in this, that's going to kind of be hard, right? Because we've got 1,000 book titles in here. So a drop down is going to have 1,000. That's just going to be too much. Now, we do have smart drop downs where we have a search feature at the top. But for right now, what I would probably suggest on this one is an autocomplete. So they can start typing and it'll find it. Or we might just do a field where we let them type in a word and we search for it. Let's try the autocomplete though. So let's save that one. And so let's refresh this page. And you'll see now I have a filter up here, right? And this one is autocomplete. So like if I start typing something in here, it's going to slowly do a, oh my gosh, my CSS is bad. That actually has it, but it's highlighted in blue. I apologize, but it is the correct name. And so it did find a title as I was typing for me. That wouldn't let me pick all titles that have the word canon in them or the word the in them. And so I could switch this filter to just be a field. Okay. And I could either say it has to be an exact match or no, it doesn't have to be an exact match. And so then that would give me a broader search term out of that field. Okay. So you have to decide what you want to do with the way you want them to be able to filter with this. Now, the one that's going to be a little easier for us, obviously, is going to be category. That's where we definitely are thinking, oh, let's just give them a simple little filter to come in here and do a drop down. because we don't have a massive amount of categories in this particular instance. So again, it always comes down to what your data is, what you want to do. So now here I can go in here and say, I only want to see the fantasy. So now I'm only seeing, I've got 14 pages of fantasy books. They're very popular. So I have fantasy books here only. So I have filtered this data. Now, one thing that I didn't point out ahead of time, which I probably should have, is you already had a group by. The group by is really cool, in my opinion, because maybe I still want to see all books, but I want them grouped by category. And so now I can group them by category, and you can see that it puts them into lumps of, let me show more at one time. That'll make a little more sense. So you can see it's put all the dramas into it. I would need to show more than this for this to show its real use. I will show it on the front side. It'll make a little more sense. I'll open it up so we can do like a show all. But grouping is really handy, I think. I like grouping. It makes a lot of sense. Let's say, for instance, we had a client who had a bunch of locations throughout the US, and we had the state. So we gave them a group by, so then you could just collapse it down. Or we have another client that has people around the world. And so we group by, we by default group the list by country, things like that. So it's a really handy thing. You can by default make your list group by, or you can allow them to do it, or you can turn this feature off if you don't want them to be able to group by. So these are filters, this is grouping, and then this is sorting by the title of the categories. And so we could sort all of these. The last thing is, we do have over here, you see you can edit, because I'm a super admin. I can view the record, or I can delete it because I'm a super admin. And we may take away the delete, and we may want to give ourselves an unpublish feature, things like that for your admins, or you may want them to be able to delete. It's up to what the client wants. And how to override. Yes, you can override the layouts, and we will. I'm not gonna have time to build a layout override for you guys, but I will show you a couple and show you what you have to do that, to override the layouts. Okay, because yes, I know we make the layouts pretty basic. We want them to absorb your font choices from your template. We're wanting it to try and blend into your template as much as possible, but yet we do have a lot of, if you look in here, you'll have a lot of selectors if you want to go in and just do a lot of changes with CSS, or if you want to even create a custom template override, you can, but you will need to do some coding to do that. You will have to make a PHP file if you're going to do a total override, just like any other override. Okay, now let's look at the front end really quickly. I'm going to log out now. So I'm no longer, I've put in all my authors and books. I'm done with that part. So now someone comes publicly to our website. They can see the books we have. Well, now this is kind of boring. I will give you that. That's not the way we want it to look to our audience. So we do have a couple of basic templates. Again, these templates are basic. They're supposed to absorb your fonts and color choices and things like that. But let's just take a look. By the default, our default template, it is a bootstrap template. But we can also do a div template, which I think for this type of look, for the books, this is a better look because it's going to create kind of that card-like effect. And you'll see what I mean. Let me save this. I'm just going to save it the way it is right now. But the other thing I want you to see, what we can override. So see, this already is looking a little bit better, but it's still not cool, right? It doesn't look like Amazon by any means. So what we need to do is we need to show different things on this, but I don't want to change the way that the management looks to my admin. But on each element, when you pull in each menu item, you can override settings. So first of all, I'm overriding the template. I'm using the div template here, whereas my admin still is going to see the bootstrap list view for their management. And then the other thing that we can do here is I can show different elements in here. So like I want the cover, let's say, and then I want the title, and then maybe I want the price, and maybe I want the author too. I probably should have done, let's do author first. Let's do author, and then let's do price. We'll hit them with the price last. And we might not even want to put the price. They wanted to be more interested and just click on it and find out the price on the details. Okay, so now if I refresh this page, this is starting to look a little better, right? Now, again, I know it's not beautiful. It's absorbing Protostar's look and feel, and it's just kind of basic. But even with just this div template, you could, at this point, you could go and you could find your selectors and you can make this look very nice. We've done this with a couple of sites. Let me see. I think this one's not going to be beautiful, but this is using kind of that same kind of thing. If I go to the Happy Tales, you can see this is the div template with just a little bit of CSS on it. And then we're also using the media slider inside of where the pictures are. This is also one. Let's find her. This one is also the div template, but with different CSS applied to it. So you see how we didn't have to create a custom template for these. We just did it with CSS, but you also could create a whole custom template and do all kinds of cool stuff if you wanted to. So yes, you can override these looks, but you might try to do it first with our base templates and then CSS, because it'll make your life a lot easier in the long run, right? You don't have to maintain a custom template. You just go and tweak your CSS. So, all right, now our authors on here. So we've got our authors. I just left them as a list. What I would probably do with these authors, if it were me, is I would have added one more element, which was the author photo, right? Like off the cover or whatever, so the author photo. And I would kind of do the same kind of thing as I have on books here, is I would probably put their picture and then their name, and you could click and get their bio and see if they have a personal website and all of that. And then on publishers, I just have their company name, but I would probably add a company logo. And then I would do the same kind of thing, have their logos and their name, and then you could click and you could see more details about them. And so you can see where they're located. What I didn't put in here is I didn't put a text area element that was their like submission guidelines. And then again, you would want them to come in and manage their own. So we do have, I know I'm going over, but I'm going to show you one last thing in here. And that is, if we wanted to allow people to manage their own, what we would have to do is we would have to go in and on the here, I'm going to do it on just the books for right this moment. Well, actually, let's do it on the authors first, and then we'll see if we have time to do it on books. But I'll do it so the author could come in here and control their own blurbs, right? So what I would need to do is on the authors table, I need to add another element. And this element is our user element. And this is literally directly tied to the Joomla user, okay? And so I call this, I like to call it user ID. So user ID. This is going to create a column that is going to put the user ID in it of the person who creates it, for starters. But if I want to, I can also assign this user ID if I've already pre-built, like I've pre-built. So now I would have to go and assign this to the individual authors. If I wanted to, I could create a user for them and assign it to this author profile. And then when they log in, we can set it so that they can edit their own. But let me look at a couple of options here. Hidden, most of the time you would say yes. I'm going to leave it unhidden so we can see what we're getting. But once you had it functioning, especially if you have them creating their own and then being able to edit their own, you would just hide this. All it is there for is to put that ownership onto that record. The options, what do you want to show in it? Their ID, their name, what do you want to show in it? I'm going to put ID in there, but, and then do you want it to update on edit? A lot of times you want to say no on that, because what you want is you want to see who created a record. Now, sometimes you want to see who edited a record last, right? We normally will create another element called edit user, and we will have this change every time it is edited. So then I can see who created the record in one element, and then I can see who edited it last in the other element. So gives you a little bit of options there. Okay, so I'm going to say yes on this one because I want to be able to edit it for us for right now so that we can see it work. And I just saved that onto Cover Artist. I don't know if y'all saw that. That was what I was working on last, obviously. And the reason I know that is because you see my group right here. It was in Cover Artist. I need to move that over to Authors where we were trying to put it. My goodness. Okay, so now let me look at Authors again. Okay, so now I have a user ID on here element, right here. At this moment, they're not assigned to anyone. And I need to see, let's go make ourselves a nice little new user. We'll call this user author 1. It's gonna be real secure, y'all. And use this email on here already. And we're just going to make them registered. And this is a little confusing because I still have the Joomla stock ones. Authors, not the same thing. I could make an author level though. And I probably, if I were doing this, I would have done my ACL first. I would have probably set up an author level, a publisher level to let them do their own, as well as we could even get more complicated and we could allow the publisher to edit any books that are under them, but authors only edit books that they authored, if that makes sense. Okay, so I have an author 1 there. What I'm going to do now, I'm just going to do this in the back end, but I could also do it from the front end if I logged in there. I'm going to go to my authors list here, and we're going to pick Antonius Andrews here. And we're going to set him to that last user ID that we did. Again, you can see I probably wouldn't do this way. I would set it with their names, but I'm just going to do this, my last user I've made, and we're going to assign it to that. So that one record now is owned by that user ID. We have one final step we need to do here before we go test it on the front end. And that is I need to go to my authors and I need to look at the permissions. So over here, you can see my access levels. So who can view this? The public. Who can view the records? The public. So that's where we see it up here, right? This is where people can see it. I'm not logged in. I can see them and I can view their record and I can see more information about them. Probably wouldn't put their address on there, but you see what I'm saying. And then who can edit them? People who are registered? Well, in this case, no. Now we're going to want this to be an upper level person who can edit anything, right? I'm gonna put super users in this instance, or use the user ID field. So now what I've said is if somebody is a super user, and I can make that something else like book admin, right? So if somebody's a book admin, they can edit any record because they're adminning the whole site. But if someone is an author and they own that particular record, they can edit themselves too. And who can add, again, we would probably make this just super user for now, and who can delete, I'm going to make all those super user. But those I might make that, again, that book admin level who can do that. And then we could also, if we wanted to, we could, for the ad record, we could just put it at the registered author kind of level and let them, if they want to create new profiles, although I don't think we want them to create new ones, but the publishers, we might want them to be able to create new. And then deleting records, again, you could decide whether you want them to be able to delete their own records or not, which could be a good thing to allow them to delete their own data if they want to, or you could lock it down where only an admin or above, whoever can do that. So let's save and close that. So now, in theory, let's knock on wood, we're going to log in as our new author login here. We're going to log in. Now, I have not changed all these settings on this, so they probably can manage the books. Probably, yeah, they can, because I haven't changed those settings. But let's look at the managed authors where we just did it. So you can see under manage authors, all they can edit in this instance is this one record, because that's the record that is tied to this user ID. If I went and tied it to another record, they could edit that. And if I did that same type thing, I put a user ID element on my books, then I could let them edit the book as well. And so they could update their cover art or their blurb about it or whatever they wanted to do. And so you can see that we've locked it down so that they can edit their own thing only. And again, I didn't lock these others down. So if I went, I could probably go and edit these right now as an author, which we won't want that to happen. So we want to go through and set all of our lists, the access levels in our list. We want to lock those down. So, well, we did get to tying the users to it. The only thing I did not show you guys that I'm going to show you just really, really quickly is on the data here. I would have taken that data and well, I did take that data, but if it come from a client like that, I would have taken the data and I would have broken it up into 3 different CSVs, my author CSV, my publisher CSV, and then the books. But inside of this books, what you would have to do, which is your time consuming thing, is you would have to relate your author ID or your publisher ID to this so that you could inject the IDs, or you'd have to go and edit them and select them. But this could be done with a query very quickly if you wanted to do it this way. And if I wanted to input these authors, I'll show you the author input. So in the back end here, I'm going to view my data, and I'm going to empty this authors, which remember, it's going to kill the one author that I made. I made a Robbie Adair author, right? I'm going to empty this out. So I have no authors right now. If I go to the front end, you can see I have no authors, but I can go in here and I can pick my CSV and I can say import from CSV. And by the way, I think I've got, let's just make sure I've got all the elements in here. I think I do. One thing that you do have to make sure is that these column headings match your elements. If they didn't match it, I'm going to mess one up really quickly and save that. It's going to say, I don't recognize this one. Do you want me to create a new element for you? So let's try this and I'll just show you what I mean. See, it says, oh, I don't know bio 3. Do you want me to make something? And what would you like it to be? So I'm going to cancel that because I actually do have one called bio. I just got my name wrong in here. So as long as I've matched my element names, then I can go into this, take the data that was supplied to me by the client, and I can import from a CSV. I can choose that CSV and continue. Oh, hang on. It helps if you save that change that you just made, Robbie. Am I the only one that talks to myself whenever I'm working, or do y'all do it too?
No, you're the only
I definitely
one.
do it too much.
Me too. Me too. Okay, so I'm gonna. The rest of the team always makes fun of me. Like, oh, yes, we know what you're thinking, Robbie. What the heck? Hang on. I am changing this in the right one, right? Save. Author, CSV. I'm just making sure. Okay, if it doesn't work this time, we'll just go on. Okay, so import, choose it. Continue. Okay, that one did it. So now you can see, boom, it brought in 400 records from my CSV that quickly. It's really fast. I mean, we've brought in 40,000, 50,000 records, and it's pretty quick. As long as you get all your element names all lined up properly on these, you can see how it pulls it in. Now, there are some caveats, like for instance, if they had supplied me with the lat long and they had done it in different things, then I would need to set it up this way. So there are some things that the way Fabrik stores the data to make it do what you want, you may have to look at the way. And the way we always test that is we'll set up this authors table. I'll add one record and then I'll export it down and I'll look at the way the data is all laid out. And so that way, if I have to massage my data in another way to make it work right with the Fabrik elements that I've chosen, I can. So now you can see all our authors are back. And I didn't change their numbering and their layout here, so they should still work with my books records because I had the IDs over there, and it will work with those because I didn't change those IDs. Okay, so I think I have covered everything that that we were going to do on this. We even tied to the Joomla user. And we did even talk about, this is kind of another example of like even lists, you can do custom layouts of your list. We did this one. I think this one actually was a custom template to do the vertical labels, but they had so many labels. As you can see, it was like going forever. So we went with vertical labels and check marks with this list so that we could show a ton of them. You could take, instead of having your details look like that boring bootstrap look, you can change it to a custom one where you lay it out however you want to. You could do that with the div template and some CSS, or you might literally want to actually write your own. And there are times when we have to write our own because we're doing other things in there. We are running some other PHP code to do different things according to what one element says on there. We may be doing something different. A good example of that would be for like the buses that I showed you. Depending on what type of fuel it is, we put a different colored bar on it. In this case, where we're doing books, I might want to have is this a bestseller or not? And if it's set to yes, we might want to put a starburst on that. And so those would be some little things that I would probably just look at with some PHP code and display what I wanted to on a custom template. So woo, we made it through. Woo.
That was absolutely excellent. My mind is totally blown. That's fantastic. And
I'm going to stop presenting now.
Very clear. But you have some questions. You have some questions.
I'm sure I did. I'm sure I did.
Do we have time for this, Phil, before your talk?
Go for it. Go.
So,
So, do anything.
Renee said, can you create a quick link to get a list of all the books from the author from the books list?
Yes, and so I didn't show you that, but if you go to the authors, oh gosh, I should probably show, it'll be easier to see if I just show it to you in here. But yes, we can actually very easily show our associations in here. If I go back here to my authors table, here, I'm going to do this off the cuff here, but you can go to related data, and it already knows. It says, hey, this person has related data over on the books. Would you like to show it? And I can say, yes, show it. And I can say, show it on the list. And I can even put a link on the form. So you can see right here, I've said show data on my authors, right? So let's save and close that. And then let's go here to manage authors. Oh, let me log out. Well, it works with this one too, even though I'm just in a view. Look.
Oh, brilliant.
Boom, boom, boom. I've got 5 books under this author, 3 books under this author. Yep. And you could do that with any associated data. And by the way, so Fabrik, because I already had associated data, Fabrik knew that, but sometimes you may have to force it. You can go in there and say, add another one and force it in there. So.
Nice. So there were some other questions.
Okay.
One was around them. Can you output the Fabrik HTML for other CSS frameworks like Bootstrap 4 or 5? I think you can. I think it's just an override, right?
Yes, yes. You can, oh, and by the way, we already have, if you go to our GitHub, we have support for Bootstrap 4 already. So we don't have 5 yet, but obviously that's going to have to come next. But we already have, you can install a plugin that will support Bootstrap 4. So,
okay, excellent. Thanks.
Yeah. Our elements, a lot of our elements, I didn't show you that. If we look at the elements in here, like, because I didn't even get into like making things look good just WYSIWYG wise, but like, let's say this first name, if I come in here under my formatting, you can see I've got spans and I've got cols. So depending on what I'm using Bootstrap wise, I've got it set in here for you already.
Nice.
Yeah.
So there was another question from me saying, can we bulk create elements?
Bulk create, you know what you can do, and I did not even show you guys this, but let's say for instance, okay, that same authors that I just had there. So there's 2 different ways I could have done this. I could actually have said, I'm going to make a new, we'll just do a test one here. We'll do test authors here. Again, I like to name it, you know me. I'll just call this one AFAB 3 because this one is not even associated. So test author. I'm going to save and close that. I'm going to save and close that. Now, remember how we just did that import? Oops. So we can go here. I can view it. I can say I want to import, and I can choose that file here, and I can go ahead, and now it's going to say, hey, there's a first name. What would you like this to be? Oh, I'd like it to be a field. So last name, would you be this, a field? There's a bio. Oh, that needs to be a text area because it needs to be a blurb, right? And this is a map. Oh, I want that to be my Google Map element. And so it's such and such. By the way, I do know I would normally have made a states table, a countries table, and then associated them with a cascading pick your country. It'll dictate what states or province you have, but I was doing this fast. Just want everybody to know, I know I would never put states in the table like this.
Okay.
Just so nobody gets upset. Okay, so you can see that I just did that. And now if I go look at my elements and I look at my test authors, refresh, it should be there. Okay, I don't know. Maybe I didn't finish out. Did I not go all the way through my steps? Hang on one second. Oh, they're there. They're there. That normally works. I don't know what I did wrong there, but it should be here, clear. Oh, maybe they didn't set to their group. I wonder. They should be there. I'm not really sure what the heck I just did there. I might have renamed them the same thing, so I'd have to double check that and see if I just overwrote something. But you can do that. The other way you can do it, I'll show you if I go in here and I set another, I'm going to call one, Joomla users, let's say, I can, and I don't suggest doing it this way, by the way. This is just something just to show you that you could pick any table in here and create a list from it. So let's find our Joomla users and let's save and close that. And then if I go look at my elements for that Joomla user, there, it did it right the way it should have done. So it created my users over on this table. If I go look at the list and I look at the view data on this, I'm seeing the same Joomla user. As you can see, this is not the way I would do that, by the way, though. I'm actually going to do a presentation at Joomla Day USA. I'm going to show you how to actually, you can set up a Fabrik form that we have a form plugin that works with Joomla user table. And so we auto create the users for you. And we can manage them, deleting them from the user table if you do it from here. So that way you can give these people the ability to create author logins, publisher logins, and manage those as an administrator on the front end and never even go to the back end of Joomla. And so they can manage their users. And by doing that, you can then do more data association, right? So I can have my user table in Fabrik. Whenever I create a new one, I pick what publisher they belong to, let's say, and then it creates a Joomla user. Now, whenever we could do some code that says, hey, when that user logs in, look at what publisher they belong to, look at what books belong to that publisher, they can edit any of those, that kind of stuff. And so having your users in Fabrik and having more data wrapped around that user just gives you more control over your application inside of Fabrik. As well as then you can turn off Joomla's user creation and save yourself some of those hacks where they try to create users.
Cool.
So I could have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
We have like 3 more questions, and I'm aware that this is going on and Phil's got to talk. But maybe if you can answer them quickly, I don't know.
Okay.
Lenny asked if you can add code on specific events, like send a mail when a record is added. Or when
Yes, and we didn't look at that either. On the forms themselves, you can actually, and now I got to show this again. On the forms, it's very easy. Let's say, for instance, let's say when there's a new book added, I want to email the boss and tell them, hey, there's a new book added. So I go to the form. So I'm editing on the form. The last thing is plugins, and I can add a plugin here, and you're going to want the email one. We already have a receipt, by the way, so if you want to just send somebody a receipt, you can do that. But I want to do an email one. I say who I want this to go to. And we also have evals too. So like, for instance, let's say this book is by a certain publisher too, then I can actually down here evaluate and say, if it's by this publisher, go look on the publisher table and grab their email and also send them a copy of this email, things like that. Or I could just put one right here, that's a basic 2. And then I have the options, like I want to say who it's from, and you can put in elements in here too, just so you know. So in other words, I could put that this is from their email, and then I could use the element holders for their name. So I could populate it from the form if I wanted to. Same in this subject. You can see it has kind of a curly bracket, table name, triple underbar. I know it's kind of weird, but table name, triple underbar, and the element name. So I could do AFAB2 underbar books, triple underbar title, curly bracket. That would put that, I could say new book, and then put the title there. And then you could either use a template if you want to build a template to use, or you could build it in an article as well. Or you could build the message right here inside of this message text. And again, you can use all the variables. So like that's how you spit back all the variables from the form is in here. You also can condition this. You can say if they said yes on sign me up for the newsletter, send this email. If they said no on this, send this letter. So you could do conditioning here too. You also can say, is this on the very first? Is it on the front end? Is it on the back end? Is it the very first, like a brand new submission, not on an edit? I don't want to do it every time I edit the book, right? So I only want this on new on the book. Or maybe I want to do when they edit. Yes.
I think that was a yes.
Sorry. Yes, you can. Next question.
Michael asks, does Fabrik have the capability to allow a front-end user to make free-form queries on the database, and is this a visual query editor?
Okay, so that's kind of a yes is what I'm going to say to you, and that is if I turn on, let me turn on an advanced search. So I'm going to do that on books, let's just say. I'll go to books and I'm going to go here and I'm going to turn on advanced search and I'll show you what this looks like. It's a little clunky. Some of our clients absolutely love it though, because they're Excel people. And so they see it as like an Excel kind of thing for them. So if I click on advanced search, I can say where this element title contains this value in it. And then I can actually add another line. And so I can do an and or an or on this. So you kind of can do querying. It is a visual WYSIWYG type query though that you're doing.
Okay, so last question, and we're ignoring Phil's silly question about using Fabrik for simple contact forms. If someone wanted to create a record and then have it approved by an admin before it went live, is that possible?
Yes.
Yes, we would just, that's a simple question. That is, I would make a hidden element that, well, hidden to a user who's filling out the form that says, unpublished or published, just like we do with Joomla articles, right? And I would by default make it unpublished. We would send an email to the admin that says somebody submitted something, you need to review it. They go review it and they could decide to publish it or not, or approve yes or no. You can make it called whatever you want. We do that all the time. Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and I did ask about the price, and Bjorn has reminded me about that. So how much
it costs you all of nothing. It is free. It's open source, just like Joomla. 100% free.
Perfect. And you say that we can call you anytime for help and advice.
Yes, and I will give you my hourly rate whenever you need help with your projects that are paying you money. Yes. I mean, yeah, there's lots of people out there who use this, and then they will, just like I started. When I started, I was using it, and at the time, they had a little subscription. You could pay a little, I don't know, 40 euros a month. I don't know what it was. They had some little subscription thing or whatever for support. But I felt bad. I would give them more money because I was like, I can't pay you that amount and get all this support. It was crazy. So I just started hiring them hourly to do that. And so the support went away eventually, and they just do work. If we get clients who call us and they say, hey, I started building this, I need help, then we come in and we help them. I have a lot of clients that call me now that we've worked with, and they say, I've got this new project coming up. Before I quote it, I want to go over it with you. We go over it. And then he says, would you like to, do these sections of it? I mean, we don't want to do it all if they can do some of it. And so we'll just kind of work out that way with them. So that's kind of we make money by helping people build other big applications with it, or for our own clients that we are building applications for. That's pretty much how we make money with Fabrik and how we keep maintaining it. And the question is it ready for J4? No, we do have a Fabrik 4 fork that we were working on with the alphas. It was changing so much that we were like, okay, let's wait till the betas. And then when they got the beta, we started testing on the beta, and then things like Bootstrap 5 happened and stuff. We were like, okay, we're going to give this a hot minute to see when it settles down. And then when it settles down, we're going to continue that path of getting it ready. But I mean, obviously we're going to maintain the one we have going forward for as long as we can. And then we'll start working on the Fabrik 4 though for Joomla 4. So we're just, we've been so busy, quite honestly, that it's just, we have it there and we have it ready to pick back up, but we have not picked it back up just yet.
Awesome. That was a very, very, very awesome talk and very eye-opening.
Yeah. Cool. Thank you guys. Thank you guys.
That was brilliant.
Well, I hope you play around with it. It's free. So download it, try it, see what you can build. I mean, it's really easy. And I saw someone ask about video tutorials. Yes, if you go to Fabrikar, it's fabrikar.com. So there's an AR in Fabrik, fabrikar.com. If you go there, there's a help section, and there's a link that says help videos. And we kind of put some there that they're on YouTube too. You can search YouTube, but they're kind of all put there in one place for you, especially some of you guys that are PHP. I did a talk on injecting PHP throughout all the different places. You can put your own custom PHP code, which is pretty much just any nook and cranny in Fabrik. I didn't show you that either because there's not enough time.
But it's there.
It's there.
There is also a great forum, isn't there? There's a great history of questions asked and answered and all that kind of thing. So that's a great resource as well.
Yes. The forum. I use the forum myself to find answers sometimes.
I'm in there somewhere.
What's the topic of your talk at Joomla Day USA?
Setting up Joomla users with Fabrik. So maintaining your users table with Fabrik instead, using it for the sign up form, and then connecting it to Joomla users so you can delete and add them as you want.
Nice. Cool. Well, thank you very much. I'm really
Robbie, thank you.
Phil's talk, which is going to be even better, Phil.
That's right.
But short.
Yeah.
It's the way we program when we're doing our thing.